Now, the very latest on that memo, President Trump says that the GOP memo released Friday completely clears him in the special counsel Mueller probe. The president tweeting yesterday on the topic saying that that memo alleges the FBI relied excessively on an anti-Trump dossier funded by Democrats to spy on a Trump campaign advisor. Joining me right now is Congressman John Ratcliffe of Texas. He's a member of the House Judiciary Committee, and he is one of the only 3 lawmakers to have actually seen the intel behind the memo, the underlying content. Also with me here in the studio is James Kallstrom, a former assistant director of the FBI. Gentlemen, it's good to have you both on the program. Thank you so much for joining us.
Nice to be with you.
Morning, Maria.
And let me set out right off the bat that both of you, having worked at the FBI, with the FBI, as the experience of having experience with the FISA court, you were both so disappointed to actually learn what you have learned. Let me kick it off with you, Congressman, because you saw the underlying data. What's most important that we need to understand from this memo?
The most important thing, not just from the memo, but from the underlying documents that I have seen, is that full disclosures weren't made to the FISA court. And why that's so important, Maria, the FISA court, unlike any other court in America, including the Supreme Court, doesn't hear both sides. This is a court where the government comes forward, and in this case, if they ask for surveillance on an American citizen, it's up to the government to make full disclosure. And in this case, in asking for a warrant against someone associated with the Trump campaign, disclosure was not made that dossier that was the basis of it was paid for by Hillary Clinton's campaign and prepared by someone who had an expressed desire to keep Donald Trump from becoming president, or that the FBI director himself called it unverified. Those are disclosures that had to be made that weren't made.
So there were a handful of FBI leaders here. They go to the Department of Justice leadership. They go to the FISA court to get a warrant to spy on somebody, and they don't tell the judge that, in fact, what they have as evidence, which is this dossier, which was largely based on getting that warrant, they don't tell the judge that that dossier was paid for by the opponent, by Hillary Clinton?
That's right. And not just once, not just twice, not just 3 times, but there were 4 different occasions for there to be full disclosure. And again, Maria, there isn't someone in there to fill in the blanks, to give the other side of the argument to a FISA judge. So when we give law enforcement these really powerful tools for law enforcement and counterintelligence purposes, we trust that the government will use them fairly and fully disclose before they take this type of action. And that's one of the things that I was most disappointed in as I reviewed the underlying source documents to all 4 FISA applications.
Jim Kallstrom, we know that the leadership of the FBI did not like Donald Trump during the election, leading up to the election. Peter Strzok and his girlfriend, Lisa Page, back and forth with text messages saying, he's this, he's that, we need an insurance policy, should he win, let's get to the secret society. I mean, crazy texts, like they actually wanted to abuse their power and dictate an ending that they didn't, because they saw a different ending happening.
Crazy on that, but before I get to that point, John's 100% correct. But in addition to that, the information was bogus. Sure, they didn't tell the judge, but they also didn't tell the judge that the information was made up. It was phony. You know, this is a serious, serious matter. Criminal contempt, false statements, conspiracy to lie to the court, denying civil rights under the color of law, perjury. I mean, these are serious, serious things. During my career, I was involved in one way or another with literally hundreds of these types of orders. And the way it was looked at was meticulous, the chain of command, the number of people that you'd have to sit down and do a mortarboard with to convince that you actually had a legitimate case to go to the judge. And I think these people, these sycophants that were around Comey and in the Department of Justice and elsewhere, was so cocksure that Hillary Clinton had a 99.9% chance of winning, they just threw caution to the wind, and they did all this crazy stuff. And I don't think we've seen, 1 or 2% of what we're about to see. We haven't talked about the unmaskings, the activity of Obama's National Security Council. and Uranium One and all this host of other things.
Well, uranium,
this is bad stuff.
Yeah, you bring up Uranium One, and it's an important thing to bring up because the Hillary Clinton investigation seems to have been in even before they interviewed her. The fix was in, Congressman, and I know you've spoken about this before because you actually interviewed Jim Comey at that testimony last September 2016, when you were looking at all of the behavior of the FBI and coming up with this conclusion that there should be no charges. Let me show this quick clip of you talking to Jim Comey last September.
Did you make the decision not to recommend criminal charges relating to classified information before or after Hillary Clinton was interviewed by the FBI on July the 2nd?
After.
Congressman, he said after. He lied to you.
Well, I want to give him the opportunity to come back and clarify his testimony. What he said very clearly. What I know now is that he had written an exoneration memo before he gave that testimony saying that he wasn't going to charge her. I've seen text messages, I've seen emails, and I have received testimony from other witnesses that are all inconsistent with that testimony that he gave to me under oath. So he needs to have the opportunity to come back and either clarify that testimony or assert his own Fifth Amendment rights.
Congressman, people want to know, will there be charges here? I mean, who's accountable for all of this?
Well, I'm not in the business anymore of charging people, but I'm in an oversight role, and I think we're very clearly demonstrating to the American people that we're trying to restore faith and trust in the Department of Justice and the FBI. You know, Jim Comey is tweeting that Republicans are attacking the FBI. The Democrats are saying the same thing. Maria, before this memo was ever released, more than half the country believed that Hillary Clinton was not charged with mishandling classified information because her name was Hillary Clinton. More than half of the people in this country believed that they would be in a slammer right now if they had done the things that she had done. So we're trying to restore faith and trust in the Department of Justice, and it's these types of investigations that can do that.
How tough is it to restore this, to turn the ship around, Jim Kallstrom?
Well, I mean, there has to be a strategy now by the president to and the new FBI director to really cleanse the FBI of these people that don't respect the rule of law, that have thrown the FBI under the bus, the 99% of agents that are out there every day risking their lives, doing the incredible things to look at all the 300 different federal statutes from the Migratory Bird Act to espionage.
Those guys and gals have been besmirched by their
leaders. Yeah, they've been besmirched
leaders.
And they've been let down in this traitorous bunch of people that basically just, you know, look the other way from what their sworn duty was, and it's just pathetic. And I think they're, you know, I think they're in deep trouble. I think there's a possible obstruction of justice, along with the perjury. The Federal Records Act has been violated numerous times. On the Hillary Clinton case, I mean, that was just a sham investigation. Comey brought all investigations on Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, anything to do with the Obama administration into headquarters.
Yeah.
So the whole investigative FBI out there in the field offices were basically cut off from these investigations. So they knew nothing of it. And it was a small group of people that conducted this sham investigation. They didn't need a lot of people because they didn't do anything. Yet, there was so much evidence of Hillary Clinton's violation of about 12 federal statutes that you could fill up a pickup truck with what were just laying around.
So what's the clarity then, Congressman, in terms of charges? Give us some more clarity in terms of whether we are going to see people being held accountable. First off, are there more memos coming out? Are there more text messages that the American people need to see?
There are more text messages that I'd like to see that we haven't been provided yet. We've requested documents, and we've just received a fraction of them. So we'll continue to look at that. There's more testimony to be received, and these congressional investigations will continue. The Inspector General is continuing his investigation into the DOJ and FBI decisions that have been made. And I do think that there's a possibility for, I know Americans have fatigue with respect to special counsel, but there may need to be the need for the appointment of another special counsel to look into some of these issues. Chairman Nunes on the House Intelligence Committee has indicated that there'll be more memos coming out relating to actions at the State Department. So I know people want justice to move quickly, but we have to make sure that we follow due process. And but at the end of the day, I'm confident that we are going to be able to restore people's faith and trust in these institutions that are vital. I am more proud of my association with the Department of Justice as an institution than I am Congress as an institution. I don't want the DOJ and the FBI to suffer the kind of public approval ratings that Congress has.
Yeah, but, you know, I mean, talk about the Department of Justice. The number 3 guy there, Bruce Orr, his wife worked for Fusion GPS. Did they all know that his wife worked for Fusion GPS, the firm that actually wrote what you called nonsense, the salacious dossier that was used for a warrant to spy on an American citizen?
Well, that's what our investigation is going to reveal. I can tell you that I have looked at the underlying source documents, which include more revelations regarding Bruce Orr and his wife, Nellie, and the connection with GPS. There was a direct pipeline into the DOJ, essentially from the Democratic National Committee and Fusion GPS, that is troubling. More bad details are going to come out about that, unfortunately. Who at the FBI was aware of that? We're still determining that.
And it feels like, Jim Kallstrom, we are pursuing an investigation of potential collusion between Trump and Russia, something that doesn't exist, and we're not investigating something that we know exists, and that is this bias and this corruption at the top of the FBI, which is why the congressman's comments are so important this morning.
When Comey was fired, he applied soon after that to be the FBI director. Went to the White House with Robert Rosenstein, I understand. Was turned down for that job, and then a day or two later, Rosenstein appoints him as the special counsel when there was no predicate crime. There was a conflict of interest as long as the Jersey Turnpike. And speaking of Rosenstein, he signs one of these orders. The Deputy Attorney General signs one of these continuing FISA orders. Now, is he claiming he did not know that this was bogus information? That he did not know the court was not giving the information about the whole, the DNC and is he playing dumb to all this stuff?
And meanwhile, he's tweeting, Congressman. Jim Comey sent out this tweet before the memo. All should appreciate the FBI speaking up. I wish more of our leaders would, but take heart. American history shows that, in the long run, weasels and liars never hold the field so long as good people stand up. Not a lot of schools or streets named after Joe McCarthy. Is he kidding me? All of this stuff happened on his watch.
He's the king weasel.
And they stonewalled you for a year. You've been asking for documents. They keep stonewalling you. What is he talking about with this tweet?
I really don't know. I'm at a loss to describe his actions. Maria, you're right. He was in charge. It was the Obama administration, as I said, that has shaken people's faith and trust in this.
Right.
And if I were a guy that were under investigation by the Inspector General for Hatch Act violations, I wouldn't be tweeting about this. I don't know. Maybe it's gallows humor.
Wow. All right.
But, Comey, McCabe, Sally Yates, Rosenstein, these people all have exposure.
Yeah.
These people have all, in one way or another, told a federal judge a bunch of malarkey.
All right. We will leave it there. Jim Kallstrom, Congressman Ratcliffe, good to see you both.